Progressivism is a societal cancer. Oh, hi there. Welcome to the Freedom Alternative. Let's talk a bit about the Speshul Snowflake syndrome. I don't know if you have noticed as of late, but it has become sort of mandatory to bow your head and kowtow to the whims of every disordered tranny out there. And mind you, the Speshul Snowflake syndrome doesn't apply only to trannies, it also applies to women and some categories of minorities, but not all of them, and so on. But let's talk specifically about the tranny Speshul Snowflake syndrome. Some places in the world are moving way beyond tolerance and are moving straight into mandatory acceptance and even beyond that. And yes, there is such thing as beyond mandatory acceptance, namely to have the tranny as the supreme ruler and everyone else must bend their entire lives in perfect accordance with the whims of the tranny. Take for instance this young boy who, when he was 13, he suddenly decided he's not a boy because he says so. The sane reaction to such a piece of news is to just shrug it off. But you see, getting everyone else to shrug it off and mind their own business is not, and arguably never has been, the purpose of the LGBT rights crowd. This boy has probably been reading a lot on Tumblr and other outlets where members of the Speshul Snowflake community tends to gather, and now the boy quite literally turned his community upside down because his community simply exercises its right not to be made the slaves to the whims of the tranny. In a town of 2,900 people in the US state of Missouri, this tranny is determined to shred the community into pieces and fill everyone with disdain and seed as much discord as possible because the quiet little town simply wants reality to prevail as opposed to his Tumblr fantasy. The CNN says, quote, "The 17-year-old Hillsboro high school senior wears skirts, makeup, and long wigs styled with bobby pins. He even started using the girls' locker room to change for gym classes, despite the school's offer of a single occupancy restroom. I am a girl, I'm not going to be pushed away to another bathroom," he told CNN affiliate KPLR. In less than 2 weeks, however, it became clear he was not welcome in the locker room. Because Perry has male anatomy, many students simply see him as a boy in a wig changing in the girls' locker room, and that makes them uncomfortable. They whispered about him in hallways, complained to faculty, and told other parents who brought it up at the school board meeting on August 27. In a petition read aloud, one parent asked the board to stop extending privileges to confused teenagers who want to be something they are not sexually, at other students' expense. Another parent, insinuating that the board was avoiding liability, asked which side it would support if he sues them for violating his right to quote-unquote parent as he chooses. When they didn't get the response they had hoped for, a group of students organized a walkout Monday with their parents' support. The protest made national headlines, casting a large spotlight on this small town of 2,900 people about 30 miles south of St. Louis, with more wild mice than people, as one resident described Hillsboro. In response, Perry and his supporters organized a rally Friday at Hillsboro Park, where he addressed the controversy. He thanked his classmate for bringing attention to his story and giving him a platform to be part of, quote, helping and inspiring other trans and gender non-conforming young people. Gender non-conforming? Do I need to remind that everyone is to a certain extent conforming and everyone is to another extent non-conforming? These people have corrupted the language entirely. And more to the point, in the People magazine, the 17-year-old boy also says that, quote, "The extremes the students are taking it to, the amount of hatred and disrespect they're spewing out, that kind of gives it away that this is more about hate than anything else." So you see a pattern in mentality in here. If you disagree with the tranny, you must be a hater. There's just really nothing in between these two positions. You're either in full agreement with the Tumblr fantasies and the progressivist ideology, or you're a hater. There's no nuances whatsoever. But anyway, let's recap. So we have a 17-year-old boy who says he's a girl. The 17-year-old has a dick like all other boys and is clearly a boy by objective standards. Yet because he says he's a girl, the school was willing to give him his own accommodation as locker room and bathroom just to avoid any conflict with any other boys and other girls. Nothing uncontroversial with this move, but you see, common sense is just not enough. The boy is so certain that he is a girl that if you disagree, you're just a hater. And the school is also now placed in an impossible position. On one hand, they're being pressured by the parents and the common sense and the community at large, for whom it is crystal clear Mr. Perry is a boy, and that's it. On the other hand, the middle-class left-wing pricks in the cathedral media, as well as the degenerates on Tumblr and other progressive outlets, are a force to be reckoned with now because the state has adopted LGBTism as the official religion. In the middle of all this is the school administration that is now desperately trying to avoid having to pay huge amounts of money on legal proceedings, and a confused young boy who is being radicalized by cynical ideologues. And the US's litigation culture doesn't really help on this one either. But whether one wants to admit it or not, any step further in the tranny rights sector is bound to ruin even more communities and seed even more discord and division. Why is that, you may ask? Because no matter how much rhetoric you put into this kid is not a girl. Period. And he will never be a girl. And everyone knows it, including himself. And it's true with every single one of them out there. You can claim whatever you please, and you should be able to do so, but you cannot possibly expect to convince more than 2 or 3% of the rest of the populace to just play the pretend game alongside with you. Also, whilst indeed you should be free to pretend that you're whatever you say you are, this idea that the whole community should just bend over backwards and just simply accept your claims regardless of observable reality is just absolutely insane, and it shows the level of entitlement that has come to exist within the members of the LGBTist religion. Sadly, it seems that the US will have to go through even far worse than this before there's any hope of a return to common sense. Other US states, such as California, or Comifornia as some of my friends call it, passed laws like the School Success and Opportunity Act, which lets students participate in sex-segregated programs and activities, including sports teams, and use facilities consistent with their gender identity. Now, what that means for normal people in plain English is that if a girl says she's a boy, then you have to not only believe her, but you have to allow her to play, for instance, competitive football with the boys. And, if the school says no, then she can sue the school for denying opportunity. But if the school says, okay, whatever, and then she goes out to play and she can't handle the pressure because, well, for instance, she's not a boy, for starters, she will still be able to sue the school for discrimination or some other Title IX bullshit. Isn't tranny rights and non-discrimination just such a fabulous idea? And make no mistake, things are about to get far worse than they are now. The CNN, for instance, says disagreeing with confused kids like the one from Hillsboro is a breach of his dignity, and then says, quote, that experts say that such sentiment reflects a lack of understanding of what it means to be transgender. The expression of transgender identity is a healthy, appropriate, and typical aspect of human development according to widely followed guidelines for supporting transgender students. And we see we have a link in there, and the link leads to a PDF authored, amongst others, by the ACLU and the National Center for Lesbian Rights. Very interesting. So there is no bias there whatsoever. It's just that the experts have spoken. The experts have reached to a consensus, and all of you plebs out there, you have to agree with them or you're a hater. And, the experts just happen to spew the exact same garbage that comes out from the most extreme corners of the far left. Now, here's a radical thought and a radical position. How about expression of transgender identity is not, and never has been, neither typical or a healthy aspect of human development? I mean, seriously, if expression of transgender identity had been typical, trannies would be more than 0.3% of the population. And if it had been a healthy aspect, then they wouldn't be looking for surgeries, more therapy, more hormones, and other treatments, which are ultimately misguided anyway. From a freedom perspective, though, I don't really care whether he says he's a she or whatnot. In my opinion, one is free to believe whatever he pleases, including to believe outright falsehoods. However, that should not mean that everyone else should be forced to bear the consequences of one's false beliefs about reality. Making all the girls get naked in front of a boy because he says he's a girl is just wrong. Forcing the whole community to accept such an insane proposition is just downright nuts. Whether they like it or not, the trannies will have to learn that there is such thing as a line between demanding tolerance and bullying. The case in Misouri is a textbook case of a tranny bullying the entire community using the threats of state violence. And although I'm sure a lot of you will whine some more and call me a homophobe or what's that term again for not submitting to the whims of trannies? It's transphobic, isn't it? Whatever. Regardless of what the term is, the reality is that I'm not afraid of trannies, nor do I hate them. I just don't particularly like the trannies when they feel that the entire planet must engage in their pretend game. Other than that, I pity the trannies, especially the young ones like this confused boy in Hillsboro. These kids need therapy, not hormones and surgeries. Their fantasies need to be dealt with in a mature and adult fashion, not entertained and forced down the throats the rest of the society, and then force the society to engineer itself entirely to accommodate their fantasies. I'm sorry, but that's just not going to work. But maybe that's the idea to begin with. Just create a perpetual revolution, not to actually help those in need, but just for the purpose of creating a perpetual revolution. Seriously. And also, I'm wondering, where else have we heard about of a movement that comes with the solutions that eventually are self-fulfilling prophecies for the sake of another perpetual revolution? Just a thought. Talk to you guys later. Thanks for watching.